Welcome to your 5-Minute Flow, where we take a moment to examine what we believe, inspect our desires, check our motivations, and survey our pursuits. Greed. The author of this quote cautions those who are greedy for gain. They are warned that the cost of that gain is the loss of their own life. King Solomon has been considered the wealthiest man in history. He's the author of this quote. This is one of many occasions on which he reinforces the idea that much of what we associate with success and prominence in this life and choose to pursue is vanity. King Solomon had it all: wealth, power, and wisdom. And yet he acknowledged that it all was vanity if we do not fear God and keep his commandments. Do you fear God and keep his commandments in your pursuits and your leisure? I'm not greedy, I'm just ambitious. Ambition is commonly equated with success, power, and fame. I submit that these are tied to the three areas Satan uses to distract and destroy humankind: the lust of the eyes, success; the lust of the flesh, power; and the pride of life, fame. But rather than embrace this definition for ambition, we instead dress it up nicely as just a desire to achieve a particular goal. This definition affords us the opportunity to disguise why we want to achieve the goal. Is the desire for success, power, and fame inherently bad? No. But when motivated by the fulfillment of our own desires at the expense of others, then it is highly likely that these goals will inevitably do more harm than good. Does your goal add more value to others than it does to you? Equality or equity. Too often, equality and equity are treated as one and the same, but they are not. This misconception is reinforced further when things appear to be balanced as seen in this image. When we operate with equality as the goal, we treat people and things that are different as though they are the same, and then question why they produce different outcomes despite being provided the same resources. To produce similar outcomes in this example, one must ensure that both people and things are provided equitable resources until the capacity of each becomes equal. But are people, places, and things meant to be equal? I would say no. But we mistakenly liken inequality with being unfair because we view inequality through the lens of making one thing better or worse than another, or having greater or lesser value than another. This is an error, because the value assigned to people, places, and things may change in accordance with the one beholding it. A Wilson NBA official basketball is worth about $200 and might lose value if I were to add my signature. But if it had LeBron James' signature, it would be worth roughly $1,200. I believe that those who genuinely seek equality and equity desire to exercise wisdom in executing justice and judgment, which ought to be the goal. One must regularly examine their motives and surround themselves with others they are willing to receive correction from, because it is not always easy to resist selfish ambition. Proper management of our wants and needs are also essential in executing justice, judgment, and equity. Feed the need, not the greed. During their exodus in chapter 16 from Egypt, God's people complained that they ate bread to their full while in Egypt, but now they will die of hunger in the wilderness. God decides to provide enough bread in the morning, quail in the evening, days 1 through 5, for them to gather their daily bread. And then on day 6, twice their daily bread, so that they could honor day 7, the Sabbath, and not need to gather what they needed for the 7th day. Each man gathered daily according to the need of those in his house. This meant some gathered more and some less, based on the number in their family. Yet those with more had nothing left over, and those with less had no lack. Some ignored the instructions, however, and tried to save for the next day, only for it to breed worms and stink. Only on day 6 would the leftovers be kept so that the people would have what they needed for day 7. When we choose to store up more reserves than God instructs us to, we are feeding our greed and not our need. Our appetite, that which we hunger often, controls what we feed ourselves. So we must regularly monitor and check our appetite to ensure that it does not take control of us. When we have an appetite for the wrong things, it can result in us never feeling satisfied. Relationship or transaction. A relationship entails that two or more people share the same state of being connected and or corresponding to one another. A transaction, on the other hand, is defined as an adjustment of a dispute, a negotiated agreement, management, or settlement of an affair. Too often, and more easily than we might want to admit, we stray away from having relationships with one another, and instead we treat what we call relationships more like transactions with one another. This is obvious to us when we use terms like gold digger or pimp. And we even understand this with the employee-employer relationship. But we may find it more difficult to see when our relationships with our family or friends become transactional. When we lose control of our appetite and we allow greed to overtake our needs, this is a strong indication that our relationships are at risk of becoming transactions. I would suggest to you that greed drives us to disregard equity, justice, and judgment, causing us to devalue our relationships and making them transactional. Solomon, along with his warning about greed, repeatedly expresses the importance of being willing to take instruction. To receive instruction, one must be willing to build discipline and receive warning and correction. Do you have your appetite under control? Thank you for joining us for your 5-minute flow. Remember, and don't forget, take action, embrace change, expect results, and share your story. Remember to like and subscribe if you desire to keep the flow.